Good afternoon, everybody. Today's March 19th, 2026. It's 1 o'clock, and this is the Transportation Committee. I'll start with members introducing themselves to my left.
Good afternoon. I'm Representative Steve Bishop from House District 17, Bucksport, Orland, Verona Island, and Penobscot.
Good afternoon. I'm Karen Montel and I represent House District 54, Farmingdale and Gardner.
Good afternoon, Representative Roger Albert, District 2, Aroostook County, northern part.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wayne Perry. I represent House District 140, which covers Arundel, Dayton, and about half of Lyman.
Good afternoon. I'm Representative Lydia Crafts of House District 46 and serve as a House Chair.
Good afternoon, James White. I represent the good people north of Dover, Foxcroft, and Piscataquis County, and 2 towns in Somerset.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Rick Mason. I represent District 97, which is almost all the people of Lisbon.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dan Ankleys. I represent House District 100, which is a central portion of the town of Brunswick.
Good afternoon. My name is Brad Farron. I live in Norridge Walk and represent the citizens of Senate District 3.
And good afternoon. I'm Tim Nangle. I represent Senate District 26, and I am the Senate Chair. Our analyst.
Good afternoon, I'm Melanie Furman. I'm the OPLA analyst. Whenever the committee is ready, have some additional materials for LD 2159 to discuss.
Yep.
So just LD 2159 is an act to require school buses to be equipped with and use school bus crossing arms. Last week, the committee reviewed some additional amendment language, and you got some additional information from Lieutenant Scott from the commission. Since then, on the green paper is a fiscal note this is for, I'll be clear, the bill without an amendment, but I still want the committee to go over it because I think even if the committee amends it, that requirement part still I think applies. And then there's some revised language. So to go over the fiscal note first, this was flagged as a potential mandate. On the second page of this green sheet, you have information on the state mandate, but essentially it's requiring a local unit of government to do something. So it just needs 90% of funding from the state, or it needs the 2/3 vote in each chamber to exempt the mandate, and then it would need a mandate preamble. So the reason I bring this up is because in the fiscal note, it estimates that $3,360,000 would be needed to implement the bill as printed. The bill, so it would require an appropriation or a transfer from the general fund of at least a little over 3 million, which is about 90% of the cost. So I was talking with the analyst from OFPR who does education materials, and it was recommended that yes, there's funding in the general fund budget, but there's no guarantee that is going to stay in the budget, and there's no guarantee, and there's nothing, I guess, tying these two together right now. So the recommendation would be on the final page to take the exact same language, sections T9 through T11, and put it in this bill as well, just to show that there would be an appropriation for this bill. I think then the alternative would be the committee may want to consider that mandate preamble, but I think the assumption is that this funding is intended to cover that as well. So to ensure that it has funding, add those sections. What that would do is it would send it to the special appropriations table, and then appropriations can kind of figure out, obviously, because they would be duplicative, how to make it so it's one, essentially.
Can we exempt it from the table in legislation?
It's a good question. I don't know. I don't think so.
Neither do I, but just a thought.
I'll reach out and I can get back to you
Okay.
on that part.
Looking at on page 43 of the green, the Maine School Safety Center program, is that an existing program? Do we want to create a new program, school bus safety center, to make sure that funds don't get mingled and get misused? Representative Kress.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Melanie, please correct me if I'm wrong. I thought that the governor's proposed approximate $4 million allocation was to the Maine school safety. So it falls in within that program in the proposed supplemental budget. So they would be the one overseeing the funds.
Yes, and so, yeah, and that's what this language is directly showing. They are an existing unit, and I do believe they appear on the commission, the governor's commission, and also the committee discussed that commission, and so they would continue in the proposal from the committee to establish a permanent, that office is cited.
Okay. And it looks like T10 says we're going to transfer 5.9 million. So the
Mhm.
fiscal note only notes the spend of 3 million plus as 90% of the total cost. Okay.
Yeah, so obviously if the committee put that language in, it would be more than the requirement to do that mandate funding. So again, and this was just flagged as a potential mandate.
Okay.
What do you need of the committee?
So now it's up to you if you want to add that language in or not. So based on this information, or if you don't, or if you want to make any changes to the fiscal note. So.
Anyone? I think we have to add T9, T10, and T11. Just to make sure that it's compliant, right?
And it makes sense that it go to appropriations since they'll be considering the budget allocation also.
Right.
I would move we add the language of T9, T10, and T11 to the bill.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Vote. All those in favor? That's unanimous of those present.
Mhm.
So that will obviously be added. I think it will look exactly the same with that unallocated language. So you'll see, I'll show you the final bill of like how it'll look, but just so you all know, assuming the committee wants this, it would go at like the end, probably before the emergency clause and the delayed effective date, and then there'll be an appropriations and allocations section in this bill now. And then on the salmon colored paper, it's just an update from last time. And some additional items for you to talk about. I was able to talk with Lieutenant Scott. And this draft has been reviewed based on the commission's last meeting, which I believe was on the 13th, so last Friday. But there's a couple of things for the committee to discuss. And I also noted the additions. So the first thing to note is the effective date of requiring all school buses to have the crossing arm. In last meeting, the committee talked about January 1st, 2027 date. I think the commission is recommending a February 15th, 2027 date to allow more time in case there's any issues, or also the legislature will be in session, so should there be any problems. So it's up to the committee to decide which date it wants.
Good.
Lieutenant Scott.
Yeah. Lieutenant Scott, would you like to come up and have a grilling? Answer some questions?
Good afternoon, Lieutenant Bruce Scott, Command of the Traffic Safety Unit.
Lieutenant Scott, thank you for being here. Can you explain what would happen if a district was unable to be in compliance by January 1?
So our concern was if they weren't compliant, the buses would actually be taken out of service at that point. And we're being told from the industry and several people that we've interviewed in the research we've done, it's possible to have it done by January 1st, but there wasn't a ton of confidence. Our fear was that expiring before the legislature begins and not be able to come back and explain the efforts that have been made, where they're at and what the holdup is. And should we need more time, should the industry need more time to finish?
Follow?
Yeah.
Who would take those buses off?
So the statute would require that they not be operated because they're defective, but the Maine State Police, when we do inspections, anytime after January 1st, if it wasn't on the bus, we would have to reject it, meaning it couldn't pass inspection. If it can't pass inspection, you can't operate in a public way.
Okay.
Representative Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On that, the more we push back the date, does the school departments keep pushing it back? And should we keep the January 1st date with the caveat that an exemption for 3 more weeks to get it done after, or do you really need the hard date without state police being able to do some exemption?
Well, Representative Perry, I'll start by saying that this is a 10-person commission, and we voted unanimously that we felt, after talking to the industry, it was really, really important to be able to come back here and have you guys in session to be able to allow for an extension if necessary and not have to put buses out of service, because we're not confident it will be done by January 1st.
Okay.
Representative Montel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Lieutenant Scott.
Good afternoon.
Can you just walk me through the process, if this should become law, how that would roll out from the state or school districts, just so if I need to have conversations with my constituents or my colleagues, how that all works and why it would be January of 2027 or perhaps February of 2027, that would be helpful.
Yeah, certainly. So we invited 3 members of the industry, local dealerships that sell school buses that could perform the type of work necessary. And after interviewing all of them, there was a determination made that it would take some time for them to all spool up. And it would depend on the methodology of funding. So the school districts don't have the money to pay for these retrofittings up front, but yet we don't know what the governor's office is going to do by way of planning, how that money is appropriated. So they're worried about, do they try to get it done now without the money, seek reimbursement? And so rolling this out, they were afraid might take until this summer when the money becomes available to start. And then some districts might have mechanics that can help put some of these on to make it faster, but other districts said they didn't think it was within their capacity unless the bus was already equipped with, and it didn't need a ton of retrofitting. And to have the dealerships do it, 2 of them said that they felt it could be done pretty confident, and 1 said no way. And so we're listening to 3 experts in the industry that are telling us, we're just not sure that we can agree that we can get this done, that the equipment will be available, and that we can make all these retrofitted for, we estimate 1,500 buses, and we don't have an exact number still because the list is so broad. From buses that are 2021 and newer was easy to find, but there was a lot of districts that had already gone and added these crossing arms years ago. So anecdotally, my inspectors are telling me better than half the buses have them, but the number that I was able to find was there was only 900 buses that were newer than 2021 and newer. So we're using the number 1,500 to 2,000.
Thank you. Can I just have a quick follow-up?
Yeah.
So when the money does come available, people will do that expeditiously, sort of. I mean, it's not like they're going to like wait and say, well, I'll wait. It's just that process. They get the money to their school district and they're able to order it, and however they figure out who's going to install it. And then, and what about the anti-pinch sensors? Are those retrofitted as well? Because that's also in the bill, right?
No, so that was stripped from this bill.
Oh, I thought I saw it again. So on one of these pages.
The last language we reviewed, it wasn't.
It
Right.
is still in the initiative items.
Yes.
But I think the difference is that saying they can use it for that. It's not mandating that buses have them. So it is mandating all buses be retrofitted with crossing arms, but at this point, it's not also mandating the sensors be on all buses. However, that initiative language allows districts, from my reading, allows them to get funds to retrofit the buses if they choose.
Was that from before too, when you saw that bill before?
Say, I'm
Was
sorry.
it like it said like may instead of like must or shall?
I think we discussed it at the last work session because of concerns from the commission. So the commission is going to provide those recommendations back when they feel more confident in the technology.
Correct.
So why February 15th? Why not just March 1st?
So to be honest, we picked the date that we knew you'd be in session, but we didn't want to ask for too much. We're like, what's the minimum amount of time that we feel we could actually get this done?
Okay.
And not have to beg for an extension? But in reality, if you weren't here to ask for that, we felt like there could be trouble with multiple districts not being able to deploy their buses.
One thing to add is in this draft, section 6, so on page 3, the subsection 6, it requires the commission, this new commission, of course, that would be permanent, to report back to this committee by February 1st. So that date of February 15th is actually later than February 1st. So theoretically, you would know by February 1st if they're seeking an extension. Just to kind of put that in perspective. So, but if you did want a later date for that, or even for this, something the committee can talk about.
Go ahead, Representative Perrin.
I know that there's language in the bill that we can report out a bill if we need to. I'm kind of asking that if it's looking like there's going to be a problem, can the department put in a bill when they have to put in a bill in the fall, just so we have there's a vehicle already there before we have to come to the committee and report a bill out? And I mean, there's lag time there if we need to really act early. So I'm kind of,
Just for clarification, so you're
Thinking.
saying the Department of Education or the Department
Well-
of Public Safety?
whomever, that once we figure out what's going on, if it's looking like to public safety that these aren't going to be able to get done, I was just thinking that it's looking like you're not, it would be better if there's a bill already in December that might look at that versus waiting for us to do it in February. So that it's already in the works and already going, if it's looking like that whomever's here kind of knows that way ahead of time.
Yeah.
If possible.
Understood. So if DPS does an omnibus bill and we can find a sponsor, I'll try to make sure that we at least have something germane to 29A so that we can add it.
Melanie, is there something in here that prevents a school district that has already retrofitted buses from asking for money to retroactively?
No.
Should we do that? Meaning the district has already put arms on the bus and they can submit for reimbursement for arms they put on the bus 2-3 years ago.
Is that question for me, sir?
Melanie,
Oh.
Yeah,
or you, if you know the answer.
Yeah, I don't know the answer in terms of like how that works. To me, it seems like the initiative is like, it's implying that it's like current. It's not like, oh, we retrofitted this in like 2021, but.
So, because we did that for the municipal bus safety screens, and I just wonder if we should think about that for this. Senator Farren and Representative Cross.
Is that procurement or how those funds are dispersed, is that put in language discussion with the appropriators where this is coming from the general fund? You know, how that would actually get spent? I don't know the answer to that.
Representative Kraft?
If a school district has already retrofitted, it's already been covered in a budget. Our school districts across the state have such huge discrepancy in what they can afford to do and not do. I would not want to allocate funds to a school that has already budgeted and paid for retrofitting and had the support of their communities to do that, then accessing money to be reimbursed, and that those monies not being available to school districts that can't afford to do these retrofits. So if this is a possibility, I guess my preference would be to put in language saying perhaps no retroactive payments prior to March 1st, 2026. So if a district says now, hey, let's get a start, we know this bill is coming, this is going to be law, those school districts, I don't want them to miss out on getting reimbursed for what they do in the next 3 months. But prior to today's conversation, the districts who have done this, it would be my preference that they self-fund.
That's good sense.
I agree.
Isn't that what I just said?
I wasn't sure if you were saying you did want them to be
No.
reimbursed.
I didn't want them. Representative Parrott?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think the good part about that too is it helps if you're trying to retrofit and you've got some districts that can do it. Have them do it right away. They know they're gonna get paid back. And that kind of leaves the districts that can't afford to do it up front to be able to have the people there to do the work, you know? So if some can get it done early, knowing they're gonna get the money, then have those get done early and then go after that. So that's a really good idea.
Okay, so we can add that. What does the committee think about for an emergency preamble? I mean, I would rather give them more money, more time by having the emergency preamble rather than waiting until July to get the money. And I don't think we would have trouble getting this passed with an emergency.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Mhm.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, I just didn't include the whole
Okay,
preamble
sorry.
in this draft because it's not changing.
Okay,
But if you did want to change the preamble to add any more information, you could. That is a possibility, but it is already in there.
okay. Go ahead.
So I think, I totally understand the, February 15th date. So if February is, I make a motion that we add that into the bill.
Okay, all those in favor?
Wait, can I-
Oh, discussion, sorry.
I trust that the commission is trying to do the most effective job. I just want it to be known that, you know, for the sponsors of the bill and the urgency of doing this, that for each day that school buses don't have it, that's just potential risk. So I hope that districts will see this and know that as soon as possible that this is done and completed, while also recognizing the reasonableness of February 15th.
Understood. Okay,
The next item, it's actually in section 3. So the underlined
oh, motion in a second, okay. All those in favor?
Fair.
Okay,
Very responsible.
so,
They even pulled this off the table. I thought they were just having a discussion.
whatever we're talking about, it's all good. Yeah, yeah. Okay, section 3, what page is section 3?
Page 1. So there is an underlined sentence at the bottom of that section, right above section 4. The commission, this is not on your paper, but Lieutenant Scott informed me that the commission also recommends adding to the end of that sentence while passengers on board. So it would read, the bus may not be in motion at any time while the door is open while passengers are on board. So if the committee wants to add that, that can also be added in.
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
I mean, it should be apparent, but obviously it's not. So,
The
Okay.
next section,
wait, do we want to add that amendment?
Yeah.
Okay. Second. One of you, yeah, we had two so moved, so we've got a second. Everyone in favor? Okay. That's unanimous. Okay.
section 4 is the new, enacting the new section 2306A. The first, in the draft you saw last work session, there were no subsections as was in the bills printed. Based on a recommended addition, now this has a subsection. So you have seen subsection 1, at least the first sentence before. The second sentence, the operator of a school bus equipped with a school bus crossing arm shall ensure that a physical restriction that prevents the crossing arm from being used is not created unnecessarily, is a suggested addition from the commission. So this basically is saying that the crossing arm has to be used and the bus driver should not, I suppose, I guess, go somewhere where there's a physical restriction why they can't put the arm down, essentially, if that makes sense. And it kind of pairs with another section. I can go through that right now if you want. Actually, yeah, let me do that. Subsection 2, so that's on page 2. It's a prohibition of the disabling of a school bus crossing arm. And this says the school bus operator may not disable the crossing arm unless there is a physical barrier that prevents the crossing arm from extending safely. So one of them is just in the positive, and then the prohibition is unless there's a physical barrier. So this was a topic of conversation for the committee last work session about when can this crossing arm be disabled. There was lots of discussion about in that crossed out section in subsection 5 on page 2, unless the school bus is stationary in a parking area and only when the driver determines it would cause greater harm or damage to use the crossing arm. That is the language the committee kind of discussed last time. It's my understanding that the commission instead recommends that language at the top of page 2 instead.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. Does, there's a motion?
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. We're gonna adopt both of those language changes. The section 1. Did we already vote on that?
Lieutenant Scott had brought that earlier and we had spent so much time discussing.
Did you want to say that on mic? Senator?
Go ahead, say it again.
If Lieutenant Scott had brought that to us sooner, we wouldn't have spent so much time discussing it.
I'm so happy the commission met twice since we last spoke and hammered this out. Thank you.
That's called throwing one under the bus.
Yeah, the school bus.
The school bus.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion other than Senator Farren's critiques of the state police? All in favor?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just for clarification, that wasn't the whole state police. That was just Lieutenant Scott.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Whatever.
Just wanted to be clear.
Fair enough.
No pressure for the next meeting, Lieutenant.
Section 7 is exactly the same as the committee viewed last time, at least on this second page. Again, this is establishing a permanent safety commission. Right now, it's operating under the executive order. This is establishing it. Just so the committee knows, paragraph C in the middle of page 2 is where the main school safety center is referenced in that, which is who would be getting the funds.
Is the main school safety center an independent agency? Do you know?
It's under the Department of Education.
Okay. Okay.
On
And
page,
I'm sorry.
oh yeah, go ahead.
And Lieutenant Scott, you're okay with this makeup of that panel? Okay.
Yes, sir.
One suggestion from the commission is on page 3, the subsection 2, with the commission, who's invited on the commission. In the language you all saw at the last work session, there was just mention of the Secretary of State or the Secretary's designee who could be a voting member. This language is now expanded, saying that the commission may invite additional members to participate as a member of the commission, including but not limited to the Secretary of State or the Secretary's designee. And it allows the commission to determine if that additional member can vote or not.
That's pretty much what we're talking about, yeah.
Mhm.
I move we support that language.
Second.
So we can have anyone show up at a meeting and the commission can say, yeah, come on up and vote. No? The commission may invite additional. But I mean, if somebody shows up, the commission could say, you're here, let's invite you to be an additional committee member today. And you can vote.
Well, I can tell you that wasn't our intent, sir.
Yeah,
Our
I-
Is
goal
that
would
what
not be
I'm,
to
I
just
mean,
let
is that what I'm
anybody-
reading?
I can tighten that language if you want. I think this is similar language as to members invited under other commissions. And my understanding is it's just like the commission at large, like the commission is this body. It's not at a commission meeting, but I can add some clarifying language if you'd like.
I think it's fine because it starts out with, they have the authority to invite. It doesn't, they're not inviting people from the audience or from wherever coming in. I think it's, if they deem that there's somebody else that should come to this meeting because of whatever reason, then, and then they can decide after if they're gonna be a voting person or it's just an invitee.
Well, that's my concern is because you could, in theory, you could stack the commission to get a vote to go your way. I mean, what, Representative White?
Though they may have the authority to do that, this by no means removes our authority to disband the commission the following week. So I don't think it's really a big threat.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
After 7 terms on the committee, I haven't known the Public Safety Department to be stacking commissions, so I think
Just
we're all
saying.
set.
Okay, so do we need a motion in a second to add that language?
Sorry.
Okay, motion in a second. I'm gonna, any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous of those present?
Recommend just put review.
Okay,
Just to get an action.
section 4.
Subsection 3, paragraph H is also new based on the committee's previous discussion. The committee was interested in allowing the commission to determine other things to talk about that's not on this list. And that will say review any other information the commission determines is necessary for school transportation safety. That's page 3 under subsection 3, paragraph H. And the final or another, I guess, is if does the committee want to change anything with that language or add anything to the duties? Okay, because I can go on to subsection 5, also on page 3, about the chair. The committee, or in the original or in the language the committee looked at last time, the co-chair was designated under members. That has since been removed, and now it's giving the commission requiring the commission to elect a chair among the members. And it states that the chair continues to hold office until a successor is elected. I was looking at other commissions and how they choose chairs. This language, if this is the language all the committee wants to say, that's okay. But some commissions determine like the chair a 3-year term or determines but that's up to the committee if it wants to add that language.
Representative Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lieutenant Scott, when I think about this commission, it seems like we are trying to bring school buses up to their safest functioning, right? Protect children, make them as safe as we can. I know that this language creates this ongoing commission, but would you anticipate frequent changes to school bus regulations coming out of this commission for the next 10 or 20 years?
Madam Chair, to be honest, I think once we're done this first deep dive, there'll be very few changes moving forward. The problems that exist today probably existed 20 years ago, and what we're hearing from drivers is that's the case. So we're hoping to leverage technology, make the buses better. The specifications are really what's going to be important, we think, moving forward, and that's something that's done 3 years in advance. So we'll make some recommendations this time around, and then as required, meet annually to discuss any new potential technology that might be out there that should be put in as a new spec.
Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Given that, I would just say that I don't see a term limit necessary for the chair, and it seems like we're really asking for the immediacy piece of it, and ongoing, it will be very minimal.
Representative Perry.
I think once Lieutenant Scott is the chair, he's required to be the chair for 10 years. So he can not retire and go off into the sunset.
Post-retirement. Don't think about moving.
Do I get to vote on that? Sure.
The warmer climates. Representative Ankleys, did you have your hand up? Good to know. Representative Ankleys is with me. Okay, so do we want to just vote on these two amendments? Yeah. Do we have a motion? We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor? That's unanimous, okay.
Just to clarify, on page 3, that subsection 6 is just adding in that report from the commission annually, or just any other facts and compliance issues. On page 4, this is the delayed effective date. So it seems like the committee has decided February 15th. If there's a possible amendment to that, this language may get added back into the section 2 rather than here, but it may show up in unallocated language. Just I wanted to let you know it is in there. And then this is not new. The emergency clause is also there. I think that's all the changes from last time.
Representative Perry.
I make a motion ought to pass as amended with all the changes we've talked about here today.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I think, I'm just going to say, I think we've done really good work on this. We've given us the flexibility to continue to move forward. And is there anything in here that allows them to report out a bill? Okay.
Well, not them reporting out a bill, you all reporting out a bill. The agencies have that authority to report out bills if they want.
No, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you all could report out a bill should there be no
Okay.
legislation.
No, just.
Oh, you just can't wait, can you? All those in favor? That's unanimous of those present.
I have a language review. If
Oh,
the
good.
committee is ready, we can start with the language for 1457. Just as like a follow-up to the Judiciary Committee's recommendations after the public records exception review. So Andy is passing out, I emailed this out to you all as well, but the memo from Judiciary with the report.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. I would just like to thank Lieutenant Scott for all of his timely input and made this process go a lot easier. Sorry. Timely. Let's get me another ticket.
All right, so the first on like the white paper is just the memo again sent out. As a summary, the Judiciary Committee met and wanted some of the language that is maintained by the authority to be a little bit more specific. They want to they recommend curtailing the amount of personally identifiable information maintained in public records. So their specific recommendation is included in language in this letter. I also put it on the yellow paper because just to make it very clear what the committee gets to decide what it wants to do with this language, because ultimately it is up to the committee as well as some additional items of discussion, especially for those on the majority report. But if anyone has any questions about the memo from the Judiciary Committee, happy to answer them, or we can jump into that language. Okay, I will go into the language. So I would read this as everything that's been changed in the previous amendment, but the section 10 that has previously been reviewed is being completely replaced with this section 10 if the committee wishes. I think I've said this in the email I sent to you all earlier, but this is I'll point out the things that are different. And I think I pointed it out in the summary on the second page. It really is restructuring a lot of what was said before, like clarifying information that's in other parts of the resolve, where the information is essentially coming from that's being maintained or stored by the authority. So that's but it says that personally identifiable information may not be sold by the authority or any vendor to any person. And it says, except as specifically provided in this section, the information is confidential and may not be disclosed. However, it lists in paragraphs A through D those situations in which it can be disclosed. A through C is the same that the committee, or yes, A, C, and D is the same. They just also, no, actually, I think that's exactly the same. Take that back. Subsection 3 is talking about now the destruction of that information. So it's specifically saying this comes in section 3, subsection 4 about the destruction of any image that has a driver or the passenger's face in it. So it's also putting that here, that should be destroyed within 1 business day. And then all information related to the violation, including the image of the violation recorded by the system, must be destroyed by the authority and any vendor as soon as possible after issuance of the final decision in favor of the registrant in an administrative review proceeding, or the issuance of a final decision in favor of the registrant by a court. So if it does progress to a court proceeding. And then subsection C, it's also destroyed. I believe that's the same, and it's as the amendment you reviewed, just specifying that 21 days after the final decision, this information must be destroyed. So
Representative Kraft?
Can you go back to 3B? So the language that you're reading says the final decision in favor of the registrant in an administrative review. But if they were found in violation and it is not in favor of the registrant,
it goes to C. So then it's the 21 days. So it's like, if in the review, they're found, okay, actually, that it was not liable, then that should just get destroyed immediately. Where if then it goes through an appeal process, then it's 21 days after.
Okay, thank you.
The final adjudication of that?
Yep,
Did you?
wherever that ends up.
Okay. Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, but it actually doesn't say immediately, does it? It says as soon as possible, which is, there's a lot of wiggle room in as possible. So it seems to me we'd want to tighten that up rather than loosen it up.
I mean, we've got, following up on that, we've got a very specific day in section A. Yeah,
Yeah, so we were talking right on the facial recognition. We wanted to get that the next business day. And Melanie, correct me if I'm wrong, this is language that came from the Judiciary Committee that deals with this information all the time, right?
Yes, so paragraph A is personally identifiable information in the sense that it's an image of a person, but paragraph B is the personally identifiable information defined in the bill at large. So the authority would never have an image of someone, like that should be disposed of immediately. So this is all information dealing with the with the civil penalty or the warning.
what if we put 21 days in there? You look distressed.
Well, I mean, if you're found not liable as soon as possible, kind of implies you want it faster than the 21 days. I feel like if we put that number in, it would have the effect of making them hold on to the data longer than we actually want, especially if they haven't done anything wrong. So I'm not super excited about that. But I mean, while I had the mic, I wanted to ask a question of Melanie, if that's okay. Is that with these changes in language that the Judiciary Committee voted on, what would you say is the biggest major substantive change to the bill? Like is it just the way it's structured, as you said, or are there
No.
like what does it do differently that it didn't do before?
Yeah, that's in paragraph D on page 2. So I would, so I think the other paragraphs before are really just clarifying what the committee has already talked about, but making it very clear what information can be maintained. Paragraph D is what the Judiciary Committee focused on for narrowing the information that is actually kept. So it says all personally identifiable information related to a violation must be destroyed by the authority and any vendor as soon as possible after collection of a civil penalty imposed pursuant to section 4, except that the authority and a vendor may maintain the license plate number and registration, or that part is up to the committee to decide if it wants to include registration plate. That was a recommendation from BMV. Judiciary did not act on that. The committee can act on that. So license plate number for purposes of determining whether the vehicle is involved in a subsequent violation as described in section 4. So rather than saying that information is confidential and then kept for 21 days, it's saying the only information that can be maintained is the plate number and anything else that the committee determines, which the committee may want to think about registration plate, may want to think about state of jurisdiction. Yes, I think that's all I have to add.
Representative Farring.
So just for the committee's information, right? We had maintained the license plate number and the recommendation of the registration plate type. We've got so many, veterans plates, commercial plates. You can have the same registration number, but it can be a different class of plate. So that was the recommendation from the BMV to add that registration plate type in there. So that's where that came from.
Representative Kraft.
And I think one of the pieces about these changes that's interesting is I think that this committee was very focused on images of the license plate as being the most concerning personal information that this program might collect. And what the Judiciary Committee also brought up is there's lots of other information that could be collected with this program, like your address and your credit card information for paying violations, and that all of that information should also be destroyed so that what is kept on file for potential future violations is as narrow and refined as license plate type and registrant. So I think all of those additional pieces that could be connected to our bank accounts or credit cards or address, all of that, they really sort of widened, I think, from what we had discussed, what personal information we were talking about.
So I'm gonna throw out a scenario here. I let Representative Crafts use my car, and because she's known to drive dangerously, she flies through a construction zone.
Mhm.
That shouldn't go on my plate.
That's what it does.
It would in this situation.
Violation.
It's whoever the registrant to that vehicle is.
But I give her up.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. You gotta collect the money from her.
Because otherwise you would have to have you would have to have some proof of who was driving the car. And I think we're very clear we didn't want that.
Okay.
So I think we covered that it's still the 21 days as the committee discussed. And then am I hearing that the members of the majority report do want to add registration plate type
And state.
and state?
Question.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Based on the recommendations from judiciary, did they feel the phrase, as Representative Ray brought up, as soon as possible was sufficient?
This came from them, so I'm gonna give it as they approved it. They did, I will say they did review this language again before it got sent to you all. So they were comfortable with this language. And they did also recognize that the committee may want to add something like registration plate type, and that's just not something they were gonna weigh in at the time.
Okay, thank you.
So I have adding registration to that paragraph D on page 2, registration plate type and state. And then one other item they added is just a sentence that the auditing firm also has to destroy the information upon completion of the audit. That was not something in the original or the amendment the Judiciary Committee reviewed, and they're like, oh, shouldn't they also have to do that? So that language is also added in subsection 4, paragraph B. Again, this notwithstanding language is just information the committee has already reviewed, just structured a little differently. But I can go through it if you want.
Would Mr. Airy from the Turnpike join us?
Thank you.
Yeah. You want to introduce yourself and then?
Yes, of course. I'm Jonathan Airy. I'm the staff attorney and board secretary at the Maine Turnpike Authority.
Mr. Airy, any additional concerns with the language that Melanie's reviewed here?
That was the only one that I think we probably couldn't work with. For the obvious reasons that we wouldn't really be able to determine the plate. So that's taken care of now.
Which one?
Can you clarify?
Yeah,
what you
I'm
mean?
sorry, the one adding registration type and state took care of our only really big concern.
Okay.
The only concern we thought we couldn't work with. There are 2 other kind of minor things. One of them is what you just brought up, which I hadn't realized was in here about the auditing firm destroying the information. A couple thoughts came to me when I heard that. First, I'm not sure what information they'll have because we would have destroyed most of it under this, right? But second, we would have those plate numbers and types. And if for some reason they wanted to see those, I'm not sure why they need to actually have them, but maybe they would to do their audit. I think if you read this literally, we'd have to give them those plate numbers and types that we had on file to keep track of who's had warnings. And it would have to give it to them. They'd have to destroy it every year after the audit. And maybe that's the intention, but I don't, if that is, then everybody would get a fresh start every year.
No,
Yes.
because the Turnpike Authority still has the data. It's
Well-
the auditing firm.
Well, if that's the intent that the auditing firm, they won't keep it, but we still can,
Yeah.
So
I guess you could read it that way, and that's the way we'll look at it, and hopefully they will. We wouldn't be giving them our only copy, in other words. And the other thing is, again, something I think we can work with, but under C, where the photo is destroyed after 21 days, that's a little different from the way it's set up now. The last version of the amendment that was voted on here said that photos would be destroyed 21 days after the final resolution of a violation. And this C, I think, tries to make that more specific by citing a couple of instances, but the first one, for instance, says that we'd have to destroy a photo 21 days after they failed to request an administrative review. In other words, if they don't respond to our notice at all, they get the notice, they have 30 days to request an administrative review. And if they don't do that, currently the way it's set up is we would send them a reminder and we would say, you know, you've missed your chance to request a review, but you still have 30 days to pay. And if you don't, we will send this to the Secretary of State's office. So that's the way the flow works right now. If this language was adopted, 21 days after they failed to respond, we would have to destroy the photo. In other words, 9 days before we send it to the Secretary of State's office. Now, we'd still have all the other personal information, so we could still send them the information on the violation, but we'd be sending them a violation, and I don't know if they'd need the photo, but we wouldn't be able to give them the photo at that point if they thought they needed it or it would help. So in other words, there's still process to go on before the violation is resolved. And it would have a little yes, please.
No.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
thank you, Mr. Speaker. Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Demoted me?
If someone contested the violation and it went through the hearing process and then said, right, they didn't respond within that 21 days, you destroy the photo, then they contest it. If you don't have the evidence that they were in that work zone, would that make it difficult to make the case of the turnpike?
At this point, where we would be is the violation notice would issue. From that point, they have 30 days to request a administrative review. If they don't, the bill says they lose their chance to request that administrative review. So at that 30 days, they've lost it. And then we would send them another notice and they'd have 30 more days to pay, or it would go to the Secretary of State. This amendment would insert another step in there that 30 days after they lost the right to 21 days, I'm sorry, excuse me, after they lost the right to administrative review, we would have to destroy the photo, even though 9 days later, we're sending this to the Secretary of State. Now, they've already missed their chance to prove their case to the Turnpike Authority, but they would still have a chance to have a hearing at the Secretary of State's office. And what kind of evidence they would need in order to suspend the registration, I'm not sure. But the photo, if they felt they needed that, rather than our records, they would have our records, and they might be fine with that. It's all been through a process. But if they needed the photo, they wouldn't be to have the photo because we would have had to destroy it before the final resolution. And that is a concern. I don't know if it's a concern that would keep the system from working or not, but it would make it a little odd.
The committee could consider, instead of referencing that initial the initial notice, referencing this, I believe it was subsection 7 instead, which is what happens after the 30 days. What happens if they don't reply? So then it's 21 days after that 30 days. That's if they don't reply though. So instead, if it wants to, again, not to continue the flow chart the committee reviewed.
Senator Farren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So currently, right, if you have a toll violation,
Yes.
and not that I've ever received one.
Asking for a friend.
Asking for a friend.
I've received them. Yes.
You get a notice of the violation, where it happened, and a picture of your plate.
Yes.
that gets mailed to somebody if you have a violation.
A friend.
A friend, right? Is that and in this case here, we're saying that same thing, right? With this process, you're gonna get mailed a violation and it's gonna have a picture of your license.
Yes.
So that process, so if now 9 days later, 21 days, you have to destroy this and we go to, and I say, this wasn't me, it was, they got the wrong plate and I'm going to appeal it to the Secretary of State's office. What are you going to send the Secretary of State?
We would send them everything we had other than the photo. We'd probably send them the original notice, we'd send them the reminder. And, we have logs that we would, that would go with the system.
Okay.
These things are certified as they go through, so we could send them this paperwork, but they wouldn't have that piece of evidence.
They wouldn't have that plate.
Right, and I'm not sure if that's what's a question in their hearing, but.
And that I'm looking in the back of the room because I think we might be able to ask somebody.
Well, but I'm also thinking the initial notice is going to have a picture of the plate on it.
Yes.
Right.
So if you were to send that initial notice to the Secretary of State, they would have the plate.
Mhm. We would normally not send that to the Secretary of State until actually 60 days after they didn't respond. 30 days after they didn't respond, or 60 days after the notice. So, I mean, we wouldn't normally send a copy to the Secretary of State of every notice we sent out, in other words.
No, but if they've appealed to them.
Yes, but if at the point that they've appealed to them, the photo would have been destroyed under what's suggested here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, except that you're saying the original photo would be destroyed, but the notice would
The notice has a photo on it, but I kind of read this to say, if the photo's there, you're going to have to black it out. It's going to have to be gone.
Representative Parry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, I'm definitely not a lawyer, so I'm probably totally wrong here, but in section C, subsection 1, no later than 21 days, failure, blah, blah, blah. But right before you turn the page, or it says, or number 2, no later than 21 days after final resolution, blah, 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 whichever's later. So does that mean that first part you were talking about destroying it 21 days there is in effect because in the second one,
Right.
because it says or,
Right.
that one, and then it says whichever's later.
Right. That was another issue that I had because this 2, is if they do respond and they request a review. So the reason I think it's or is the first case where they don't respond at all. Right. And they fail to request a review. And the second case would be they do request a review and we say, we're sorry, we think you're liable. Okay, then 21 days after that, we would have to destroy the photo.
So
But the issue,
what if we made it 21 days after they've lost their right to an appeal with the Secretary of State's office?
Well, I think,
And then Melanie, you look like you were
Right.
dying to say
Yeah,
something.
so there's 3 in the amendment, there are 3 steps. There is the first step that initiates all of this is you're getting the notice of violation. Then you can respond and then so you either pay or you respond and the response is I'm going to appeal this and that's the administrative review process and then that's all of that. But there's also the choice not to respond, which is another subsection. This is referencing the issuance of the first notice of violation. The committee could consider referencing instead the no response section instead. So it'll be 21 days if there's from the time of no response. Because theoretically, if they responded, then it's following the same path, the normal path, rather than I think what I'm hearing that this is affecting what happens if someone doesn't respond and then they need that and then their license may be suspended or their right to operate in Maine may be revoked. So it, instead of subsection 5 referencing, it's subsection 7 in the amendment language. So that I think may address the issue, because this seems to be an issue with what happens if someone doesn't respond, and then that information needs to get to the Secretary of State's office.
Representative White.
Well, beyond my first question, I'm going to assume that you meant registration be revoked, not license to operate be revoked. Because these penalties are to the
On the
vehicle.
So registration in Maine.
Right, not
right
my,
to
not my
operate
right
in-
to operate. If
Well,
I
right
own
to
5
operate-
vehicles, the vehicle that went through the construction zone could lose its registration, not me losing my right to operate.
That
That's a
if you're out
very
of
distinct
state.
difference.
Out of state, yes, that's what it says.
So if you don't hold a driver's license in Maine.
If the registration is in another state, because Maine can't tell another state suspend their registration, just like any failure to pay any traffic infraction, it would be the suspension of the right to operate in Maine.
That license plate or the individual's
The-
driver's license?
Well, the individual's ability to drive in Maine, I don't
So-
know how it's administered.
So
but-
someone who lives over the border in New Hampshire, who owns multiple vehicles, who's someone else driving their vehicle goes through the construction zone and they don't pay the ticket because whatever, then they lose their right to operate in the state of Maine, not the vehicle.
I think this,
That wasn't,
is all.
that wasn't what we were talking about.
Yeah, I
last
think
work
all
session.
of this is tied to the vehicle, so it'd be that vehicle's ability.
Okay. Now, my other question is, we have penalties in here that stack up for someone who has multiple violations. Wouldn't you need to preserve the evidence from the first violation to add a second violation to the?
Yeah, we're talking, we went through.
Mike.
Yeah. We went through this because that's one of the pieces. What we're talking here specifically, what information can you retain?
Right.
And that's where I think Representative Kraus was talking about, we were first focused on just the facial recognition piece, but then there's other pieces that came up, the banking piece or whatever. And I think, and we asked the Turnpike Authority, the pieces that they're saying that they can retain or will retain is the registrant piece, but not the image of the plate. That's the hang up. They can keep the other piece of it. It's the image that everyone seems to have the biggest hang up about. And we're just trying to get this for the majority report.
What if we said the records of the turnpike will suffice as an image? Meaning, I don't know, just.
It does say similar things to that in the bill,
Okay.
Senator. It says it's prima facie evidence.
Yeah.
So that's why I started this with, and I am not sure if this is in any way a critical flaw with this. It just creates a strange situation. And I wanted to make you all aware of that it's an oddity, that we won't have the picture, but we'll have all the rest of the information at this point.
I would suggest that, given that it's a pilot
Mhm.
and this sounds like a very specific situation in which if this plays out in that 3-year window and the Secretary of State's office is unable to revoke the registration because there's not an image,
Right.
then that would be good information to bring back to
Right.
the legislature if there were future laws looking to make this permanent, that we might take it up then, but
Yeah.
it sounds like it's a narrow enough concern. We
Oh,
could
it-
try
It
this.
is, and it's something we can probably work around, as you say, Representative. I just wanted to
I appreciate
make sure
that.
everybody knew that there's this strange little hole there.
Sure, thank you.
Do we want to bring representatives from the Secretary of State's office?
If she wants to.
Ms.
Thank
Cook,
you.
would you like to come up?
Good afternoon, Emily Cook, Deputy Secretary of State for Policy. I think this is an interesting sort of time loop, I guess you could call it. I think we tend to like to have whatever evidence is being used to create an action. But what you were saying, Representative Crafts, about this being a pilot and seeing if it really does become an issue through that pilot, and even partway through if it needs to be tweaked, I think we could handle that.
Okay. So leave it as is.
All right.
Is that what well, yeah, the amendment, leave the amendment as is. Is that what we're agreeing to? Okay.
Make that doable. That seems good.
Yeah. Does anyone on the majority report have any concerns about these proposed amendments? Okay.
Okay.
Melanie, will we see this again?
Yeah, so again, this was just section 10. So, and you have seen all of it. So if you do pull out your folder for this, just read this instead of other section 10. And I will send a final version of this to you all, which may occur over email.
Yes. I was gonna say, do you want to discuss the language review going forward?
Yeah, we have a couple more language reviews today, but moving forward, it'll be on email. And so just check your emails. There'll be a date in which you have to reply by. If you have any issues, it'll specify if it's a majority report, or most of them are unanimous, and I don't think there's much left. Probably likely be this one and the bill you just voted today, but that'll be over email.
And should we not respond all?
No, don't reply all. I'll usually in those, I'll blind carbon copy them. So
Okay.
if you did reply all, it would just get kicked to me anyway, but try not to reply all, to not create a public meeting that's not public.
Public. But if somebody replied to you and brought up a concern, you can then email that concern out to us.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Just wanted to be clear about that. Okay.
Okay.
And now I guess we can move on to my favorite part of the day, which is language review.
Yeah, we just did.
Yeah, but she said she has a couple more.
Yeah, there are a couple more, just two.
See?
We can do the committee bill first. It's an LR. This is the one that the committee voted to go straight to the floor, so it'll be ought to pass, but I wanted to show you the final language before it got sent to the floor, so you're not surprised. And if there's any changes, I can make those changes now. So, it's also included the fiscal note that says there's no fiscal impact, which.
We always like those.
Yeah, so there's one section, the section says that this committee can report out a bill next legislature based on the report it received this legislature on the towing industry. That's it. So let me know
Where
if
does
you
it-
want anything changed in that language.
Where does it say towing industry?
So I suppose I didn't include the title. The title will be the authority, a resolve directing.
Okay,
Oh, it is on the fiscal note. It's resolved authorizing the Joint Standing Committee of the Legislature having jurisdiction over transportation matters to report out a bill regarding the towing industry. In the language itself, it references the report received this year pursuant to Resolve 2025, Chapter 77, which goes back.
Okay.
That's kind of the connection between
Yep.
the 2 years. But is there any concerns with that section 1 language, lines 1 through 5?
nope.
All right, and I think everyone voted, it was a unanimous ought to pass, so you can anticipate this being reported out as that, so you're not surprised. The next one is final language for LD 1804. This is the minority report language. So this is saw this a while ago, funding. That change that the jurisdictional matters with highway fund. Again, this is a majority report. Final language. Nothing has changed for members in the minority, nothing significant has changed since you saw the initial language. But for your reference, I included the bill as printed because this amendment sometimes will be like in section 3, and it's like, I don't know what section 3 is. And so I included the bill as printed. So if there are any concerns with members on the minority report, please. Yeah.
Oh, no, you don't just.
It's not just a brag.
Yes, right now.
No, I
No.
Yeah, so this is the final language for LD 1804, which is about the transportation funding, the jurisdiction over the highway fund, as well as some other things. It's the final language for the minority report. Again, not very many differences. I think, well, on page 4, lines 14 through 24, rather than listing the funds, instead of like calling it like the support program or calling it just describes the programs. But I took the language from different highway fund bills and the description of the program. Yeah, so it's the same language that you would see like the program description in the Department of Public Safety State Police Fund, just rather than calling it like the support program or calling it traffic safety unit. It kind of defines it a little bit more rather than specifically referencing it. But again, it's adding more, it's obviously adding more words, but it does the same thing. So if there is any concerns, yeah, let me know.
I thought we talked on the funding piece. The amendment was 100%, wasn't it?
It's there.
Yes,
Look at
it's
the
the,
summary.
Line 20.
yeah, it's on line 28. Let me check the summary though, make sure. Yep, 7, line 27, page 5, line 27, increasing from 60 to 100. And that's also on page 4, line 28. It's that one's one of those ones that's a little weird where it's like amend section 13 by striking out 60 and but it does say 100 now.
Last chance to go to 48% if you guys want to get on board.
We can reconsider it. You
Yeah,
guys can all
you guys
come
come
on
on
board and
board.
fund highways. And that was the state
Never
police
too late
again.
for a floor amendment.
What was the vote on this?
It was, pardon line.
You know how to support the department?
All right, let's move on.
Anything else?
Nope, that's all.
Any, go ahead.
We discussed the committee having a lunch on Tuesday, March 31st is, I believe, what leadership is suggesting, from 12 to 2. I wanted to suggest that perhaps the committee would be open to ordering lunch in so that if our day gets a little bit wonky timing wise, we could just enjoy lunch here rather than, yeah. Is that good?
It all depends what we're ordering here.
Okay, I'll
No,
send
last time
out
we donated all our money to Holly.
to Holly. We skipped the lunch, yeah. Okay, if folks are okay with that, I will send out a couple of suggestions.
Go ahead.
And we have not obviously voted out the budget. We are waiting on some of the change package pieces. We will invite folks back up to go over those new initiatives and to discuss any additional change we want to make.
So we'll have to have another meeting or two. depending on what-
Yeah, likely next week.
Probably
Well,
bring
we
the
will have-
commissioner in.
Sometime.
What's that?
We will have one sometime because we still gotta do the supplemental.
Yeah.
Thanks. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?